So I want to finish off by telling you one last story, and excuse me if some of the facts are a little hazy, because it was such a confusing story as it was. Milchemet Lebanon, the beginning of Peace for the Galilee, 1982, June, a few hours after the war had broken out. All of a sudden, the neighborhood of Talpiot is awoken, I would say shaken, to terrible news that comes. There, sitting in her office, the mother of Yuval Harel gets a phone call from her friends and says, "We just heard on the news that they're burying Yuval this afternoon in Har Herzl." She says, "How's that possible? I don't know anything about it." She starts walking home. She walks past the Makola, everyone's looking at her. Yuval, there's whispers in the air that Yuval Harel's been killed. She doesn't understand. Finally, later that afternoon, people come to her house. They'd just been to the funeral. It was a different Yuval Harel that lived only 2 kilometers away from her. 2 kilometers away. Yuval Harel, her son, still alive from the Nachal. Yuval Harel, 2 kilometers away, in the same neighborhood of Talpiot, unfortunately killed, a tankist. The very next day, she gets a knock on the door. And she starts screaming because she sees it's a jeep with soldiers in it. "They buried my son without telling me. How's it possible they buried my son without telling me?" Her son said, one of her sons who was still in the house said, "Let me go down and speak to the soldiers, because it's probably a mistake. I'll send them to the other Yuval Harel." He goes down and the soldiers refuse to leave. They said, "We need to come up and speak to her." He says, no, you don't understand. The other Yuval Harel's down the road. It's him. It's not my mother. You don't need to speak to my mother. But they go up. And they tell her that Yuval Harel, your son from the Nachal, has been killed too. They're buried 2 away from each other in Har Herzl. And then buried next to them is another story. Man called Yosef Bashar. Basha is buried there. They were very good friends of the Harels, and she was with them the whole time during the funeral proceedings. At the funeral itself of Yuval Harel, the second Yuval Harel, the officers who unfortunately the job is to tell the families that they've lost their sons, track her down and tell her, "Your son too has died." Towards the end of the funeral, the mother stands up and says to the people who are around at Yuval Harel's funeral, "Please come back tomorrow for my son's funeral." What a tragic, tragic story. In the background over here, you can see the freshest graves of Har Herzl. It's so sad to see how young they were and how they still had their whole life in front of them and they lost their lives. But they did it fighting for the country. They did it making sure that we could be safe today. It's such a sad, sad spot to be in. But what terrifies me more is what's right behind me. These 2 empty spaces, another one that's off to my right-hand side here. Because I'm terrified that these will then be filled with graves too. When we stand in Har Herzl, wherever you may be in the world today, you need to pray that these places stay empty. You need to say we've paid a big enough price. You need to hope and pray that we'll be able to live in freedom and in shalom, that we won't have to fill these places any longer, that they'll be able to stay empty. As you walk around Har Herzl, and as you know the Jewish custom is to take these stones, you put a stone on top of a grave to say you've been there. Even, Av, Ben, Nechet, father, son, grandchild. But we've been there, we've put our stone on the grave. But I think there's something more critical that we need to understand about a stone, especially on a day like this. Travel around the world you live in. Place to place. My home, my house is built out of stone. I want to take all the stones from these graves and I want to do what they're meant to be done with. I want to build the next level of the country. They didn't die in vain. They died so that we could live peacefully here. We need to take what they gave us, and we need to take those stones that are now on top of their graves and build the next level. Build, build, build. As you leave Yom HaZikaron and you enter into Yom HaAtzmaut, it's never an easy time. That transition is so hard. But remember, let's take those stones and we're going to continue to build the next level. Yehi Zichram Baruch, may their memory be blessed. We're going to try our best, really, to keep your memory alive and to live the lives for you that you didn't manage to do. We're going to hold on to your families tight, and this year more than ever, when it comes to Yom HaZikaron, when they can't come to your graves, please, please know that we're with your family. Please, we're hugging them. Sheyeh Chag Sameach lekulam. But at the same time, please remember these people.